Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bollywood Cinema Club, a show where we talk about Indian cinema every other week. I am your host, Chris Dasher, the Culture Cast, where this show got spun off from, and I am joined by my good friend, you've heard him here before, talking about Indian cinema, more specifically, Indian Eck, your friend and mine, good old artist among men.
Hello.
Eck Tha Tiger himself.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah. Boy. Yeah. I mean, Salman Khan's voice doesn't go as deep as SRK's does in ton.
Yeah, the SRK's got quite the range.
Yeah. So if you clicked on this episode, you know what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about a little film that kickstarted the YRF spy universe. But boy, it kind of didn't seem like there was anything connected coming out of this movie. We're going to be talking about 2012's Kabir Khan directed Eck Tha Tiger, otherwise known as There Once Was a Tiger. The film is directed by Kabir Khan, written by Kabir Khan and Nilesh Misra. It stars one and only one of the three Khans, Salman Khan and Katrina Kaif. Salman Khan plays the titular Tiger, who is a raw officer who goes on a mission to spy on who else? Roshan Seth, otherwise known as Chatter Lal from Temple of Doom, which is a great face to see outside of that movie. And he plays a scientist who Salman Khan is tasked with shadowing because he may be leaking nuclear secret. However, Katrina Kaif plays an ISI agent who is also undercover, trying to thwart the actions of our titular character, Tiger. Dustin, I am so curious because you and I went and saw Pathan together. And this character of Tiger shows up in that movie. And if you listen to our episode on Pathan, you'll know all about our feelings on him in that movie. But this is our opportunity to see not only Salman Khan in his own movie, but Katrina Kaif in a role that is bigger than any of the roles I've seen her in up until this point. So I'm curious, Dustin, what did you think about Eck Tha Tiger?
Well, having seen Tiger show up in Pathan, not knowing anything about his backstory, that was a cool moment, but it gave me cause to go find out more about Tiger. And so watching this movie, I was kind of excited to get more on what the Tiger's story was. And what I thought about it, it was a fun watch. It was almost like a combination of Born Identity and The Man Who Knew Too Little.
Right.
It had this like serious action with like silliness. It was kind of a unique combination of things. It was kind of a action movie that was silly but wanted to be serious. But and granted, I've only seen a couple of these spy movies, but they really like their pseudo agents and triple agents and stuff like that.
And people making decisions that aren't actually what we're seeing, and we're seeing it from a different angle. Yeah.
They keep you guessing.
Yeah. So, first I want to mention something, and I'll mention this for the both of us, but it's something that has to be mentioned because we haven't talked about him yet on the show. So it bears mentioning the issues that Salman Khan had, namely running people over by accident and killing them while drunk, which is as about a bad a thing as you can humanly do, and then more or less not having to pay the consequence in any way.
Caitlyn Jenner style.
Yeah. I mean, it's again, it's not a uniquely American thing that if you're rich and able to pay someone well enough that you can get away with anything. It's not a uniquely American. It's a uniquely people in positions of power or people with notoriety. So I don't want to drag Salman Khan, but we have to mention that Salman Khan has some problematic things about him as a person, not Salman Khan, the actor. So just need to get that out of the way now, just like if we were talking about any other person like a Roman Polanski film, because again, kind of part and parcel with talking about Polanski and statutory rape. Can't get around those things. So all of that aside, I had a lot of fun with this movie. I had a lot of fun with a movie that, like you said, has a tonal shift about halfway through. The first part of the movie is a comedy, more or less. There are some kind of flashbacks that have a little bit of action, and there's a little bit of action in the opening of the film, but it's a comedy for the first hour of a 2.5 hour movie. And then we transition into something more akin to less bombastic Pathan, sort of. I mean, again, this movie doesn't have a real antagonist. It's more about the relationship between Salman Khan and Katrina Kaif, who are fantastic. They have such good screen presence together. They have a lot of chemistry. And look, again, Salman Khan's issues aside, he is a charismatic act. He is so charismatic. And you can't help but root for his character. But that being said, I kind of wish it had just been the comedy throughout the whole movie because the second half of the movie is okay. I didn't like it as much.
The part where they're trying to get away together.
Right, where they're on the run it's not as interesting.
It's a totally new storyline embedded in it could have been two movies.
Right. I mean, again, and you know, we in a lot of the movies that we've talked about together, like Bahubali, you know, 1 and 2, we talked about, and we've talked about it with other things, even Pathan, where they have a flashback within a flashback of a character that could not know this flashback of this character because it's a different character. The storytelling conventions are played with heavily in Indian cinema to often very successful effect, using flashbacks, using cutaways, and then flashbacks, which this movie does. There's a lot of that.
Well, and I think we're not pointing it out because, like, at least I'm not pointing it out because I didn't like that. It's just different. It's something that you notice while watching because it's different.
It stops being a funny movie in the second half. There's
very much so.
Yeah. Once they make it to Havana and they get held up at gunpoint, essentially, it becomes a very different movie. And again, I don't think it's not as good as the first part of the movie. I think it's just not as entertaining because it's very much something we've seen before. And that's not to say that, like you said, the man who knew too little. That's not to say that we haven't seen things like an agent pretending to be a dope to put one over on his target so that he can get information from him. It's not like we haven't seen that before. Mm-hmm. It's just here it's done really well, and the chemistry between Salman Khan and Katrina Kaif is so good that I wanted to see more of the quiet moments between the two of them and less the moments of them beating the shit out. Not that it's not entertaining, not that it's not well done, not that it's not well shot. It's just it doesn't there's plenty of this kind of stuff we've seen before, both in Indian cinema and in American cinema, that, like you said, it's Bourne Identity adjacent. Not in a bad way, but not in a way that's really making me go, wow, and take pause.
And an interesting thing I noticed, just because the movie kind of intrigued me just because of all the locations they shot at. Like, they were everywhere. I wanted to know more about that. As I was looking into that, we both mentioned Bourne Identity. There were Bourne Identity stunt people that helped, or stunt directors that helped on this film. And it's weird that we got that vibe from it.
I mean, his character is Jason Bourne in a lot of ways.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Like,
yeah.
That the opening, because the movie opens with a James Bond opening, right? It opens the way all these kind of big action movies where it's a spy, a lot of them open the same way, with this big crazy opening of him going and doing something and getting away, and then it's like, you know, what's my next assignment? Like that is this movie in a nutshell, because again, it works. It works in James Bond every time. Like,
yep.
There's a reason they do it. So them setting kind of the tone for this movie feels very Bourne, and then they pivot away from it. And it feels so kind of refreshing that it's like, well, it's not just, there's a little bit of it, but it's not just that.
Well, even right after all the action kind of Bourne-like setting of the movie, before he gets his next assignment, they cut to him like at his house or in his neighborhood with the milkman. And he even has his 007 t-shirt on, but all of his neighbors are like, oh, he's back. Where has he been? It's been months. But right there, the comedy starts to kick in, because there's the one neighbor, guy and his wife, they're like watering the lawn or something. And he tells his wife, you stop staring at him. And she's like, I'm not. And she hasn't broken like gaze towards him once. And he's just standing there looking at her. Like, I cracked up in that moment. And I was like, I thought this was like a big time action movie. Like, it was just these little subtle comedy things that started to come out, and then it kind of got sprinkled in here and there. And that, like you said, that first half of the movie, there was a lot of it.
Well, I mean, they do this thing in the first half of the movie, and now, you know, we watched the trailer for this movie together, and we kind of didn't understand some of the stuff that we saw in the trailer. And that's because in the movie, those scenes are completely like out of context, intentionally. Like the scene with him running from a bunch of women with burqas on. The scene where he's like, I'm James Bond, 007. Like, that is not that's in the movie the same way it's in the trailer. It's just that. But it's him trying to be like, nobody even believes me when I tell them what I do. Like,
yeah. Or what he wishes he could say.
Right. Like, and what's great is that those scenes within the movie are these interesting kind of cutaways to something that is also still funny.
Yeah.
It's funny, and then they're cutting away to something funny, and they're cutting back. And look, again, Salman Khan is a believable action star, but he's also really funny. He has really good comedic timing, and he also has a really expressive face.
Yeah.
And he's really good at emoting, but not mugging. Because, you know, on the Police Squad show that I do with Projection Booth's Mike White and Wake Up Heavy's Mark Begley, which you can find over on the Weirding Way Media Network, we talk about Leslie Nielsen mugging all the time. And mugging and mugging being kind of the death of Naked Gun, because mugging is just not funny. Like, someone going for 10 seconds is not funny. It's like, show me what they're mugging at, show me what the mugging's about, tell me what the mugging's about. And it could have veered into that territory in this movie, and it just doesn't. It's just him being funny and having good facial reactions to the wild stuff that's happening around him while he's trying to keep his cover, you know, quote unquote.
Well, those moments you're talking about, I didn't think about it at the time, but where like something gets said and like, don't you like dogs? And then it cuts, like he kind of stares at the camera, and then it cuts to him running away from dogs, like vicious dogs. But like, so we've got comedy, we've got action, and we've got breaking the fourth wall, because he turns and he looks at the viewer like,
right. Who is that for the benefit for? It's for our benefit.
Right. And that's, again, think of any James Bond movie, any Bourne movie, any Mission Impossible movie. There's never a moment where they're like, hey there, viewer,
right,
check this out.
But it might work. Because again, like,
yeah,
I mean, you know, not to go like full dead.
And it's a connection.
Right. Yeah. If you go full Deadpool and you have this like hyper self-awareness, it's like, okay, we get it. Like, you're going to hang a lantern. But this is like, it's just subtle enough where it could even be perceived as maybe not even fourth wall breaking, and just, you know, again, just like, oh, you're inside it. You're seeing his memory of the thing. But again, like, for whose benefit are we seeing?
Right. Like, yeah. And why's he got to look at me?
Right. Exactly. But what I really love about this movie is the chemistry between Salman Khan and Katrina Kaif. Like, they are very good together and believable. Like, in a lot of ways, they're like SRK and Kajol were for DDLJ, where it's like you have two people who just happen to have a lot of chemistry separately and charisma with a lot of other actors, but when they're together, it's like these are the two actors who are meant for each other. This is the fourth time they're together.
Wow.
And they're together one more time, at least for Tiger, and then another time because Tiger 3 is...
Oh, she's going to be in that too. Wow.
Right. Yeah. So that's
cool.
6 movies together. That's a lot.
And it's you mentioned it with Pathan, it's another, Pakistan relations thing going on.
I mean, this is where it came from, right? Well,
yeah.
I mean, again, I'm sure it has been in plenty of Indian cinema films before that I have not seen, and I'm not going to say...
Kind of the core of what's going on.
In both movies, really.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, where is it done better? Is it done better here or in Pathan? I have an answer myself, but I'm curious if you agree or have a differing answer.
I think in what I've seen with these the spy universe or spyverse stuff, I mean, we've seen two. I think it's done better in this one because it's very much Raw versus ISI. Like, they do a good job of kind of giving you that feeling that these are two organizations within those countries' governments that were made to cancel the other one out, and they're sworn enemies.
Well, and in Pathan, I mean, it's more or less used as like a plot device.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, like, she's not working for the Pakistani government in Pathan. Deepika Padukone is working for Jim. So it's less in that one, Pakistan versus India. That's more Pakistan and India like working together to stop that exterior threat of Jim and his, jetpack riding pals out in Afghanistan. So in a lot of ways, like, I 100% agree. And I think that is why they put it in Pathan. And I think it didn't need to be in Pathan in a lot of ways. Like, it's done so good here that now this is going to kind of really suck to say. It kind of lessens Pathan.
Okay.
Because this relationship is exactly the same one from Pathan. It's just done way better.
Yeah, that's true.
And again, like, not to diminish SRK and Deepika Padukone's chemistry, they have a lot of it. They're a fantastic couple on screen. I look forward to seeing more of them in Pathan 2, 3, 4, And however many more they decide to make, however many more times he decides to show up, I'm fucking on board. But Salman Khan and Katrina Kaif are so believable together and so just work so well off of one another once we know what the score is, once we know that they know we know, that it's been revealed to the audience. Because again, like in the trailer, they spoil it, that she's an ISI agent.
Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, the movie doesn't really let the cat out of the bag until the hour and a half where the movie changes its tone. And we have this kind of scene that I feel it kind of deserves a little kind of analysis because it really sucks. And I hate that they did it in this movie because it feels really cheap.
You're talking about when he shoots his gun?
Yeah, it's it's such a lazy storytelling device.
Yeah, like, oh, he didn't shoot her.
Right. And I feel like it's maybe even less the shooting thing and more the fact that then we wait 15 minutes to get what actually happened.
Yeah.
Because we have a scene of him going to the professor's house to get the data off the computer. And of course, she's already there. Turn around in the chair. Did you actually love me? And this is the kind of, it's either me or the mission, and again, we've seen this before in plenty of things. James Bond, Austin Powers makes fun of it. Any spy thing tends to have it's me or the mission type. So we have this very just, again, by the formula scene, and then Salman Khan shoots and we cut away. And it doesn't come back to this answer of what's going on for literally 15.
Mm-hmm.
Where then it's him going and talking to, Shinoy, the chief of Ra, and talking to him about what's going on and what he had to do. And they even have this thing where he's like, that agent that you killed, you always kill someone in all these missions. The movie is continuing to try to convince you that he actually killed Katrina Kaif. And it's 15 minutes that feel like wasted time.
Well, it made me think after they revealed that she was still alive, like that Tiger tried to pass it off that he did kill her, like, did he go back and say, oh yeah, I killed her. Don't worry about her anymore.
But it's not even made clear if that's the case.
No, but I assumed that. You're right.
But that's what the movie's trying to convince, right?
Yeah, and it did to me.
That was the question I had for you. Is like, is it actually believable to think that he would shoot her?
Well, when I saw it happen, I thought two things right away. One was the kind of age-old formula for this stuff that, like, oh, I bet he didn't.
Shot into the air or something.
Yeah, but then I thought, well, I mean, in Pathan, I saw somebody shoot a pregnant woman in the belly, so maybe he did shoot her right between the eyes. I don't know.
I mean, again, like, that's fair.
But then I looked at how much was left in the movie, and I saw like another hour and a half, and I was like, no, she can't be dead.
There's no way that you are not in this movie.
That's the privilege of a 2023 movie watching is we've got a progress bar.
Yeah, that's fair. I personally felt like there's no way I believe that he's actually gonna kill Katrina Kaif. Like, it's just like that relationship that they had on screen did not even lend me to believe that there would be any doubt in either one of their minds if they were put in that situation after having gone through all the things that they had gone through up until that point. Which again, it's not like he was being shot at all the time, but they had this like really cute relationship that forms organic.
They established a lot. Yeah.
Right. There's no way I actually believe that he would kill her. Like, no way at all. Like, and I'm not saying it's because I'm a smart movie watcher. It's just the movie didn't do enough to convince me that Tiger is that bad of a guy. Because he would have to be not bad, but like that devoted to the job.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
He falls in love with her way too fast.
They are trying to also establish him as like, the guy who's always been about his duty, and he doesn't. I kind of was led to believe that he doesn't want to have regrets,
Right.
So yeah, you put all that into play, and yeah, he wouldn't have shot her. I shouldn't have fallen for it.
Well, I mean, again, like what's crazy is that they reveal it in the trailer that she is a double agent. That's a twist that could be earned in that moment. I mean, I don't think if you're watching the movie and you don't know what the twist is, that you don't think, oh, person in the chair is Katrina Kaif. Like, it's a weird twist to have in your movie because you literally spoil it in your trailer.
But then they twist you, and then they twist you again. You get two more twists with their relationship.
I don't think either one really worked.
It did for me. I'm a sucker.
I don't think I believed that she would turn on you.
So I kind of figured once I showed her again, I'm like, okay, they're going to get back to her. And then, they're going to try to run away together. Cool. I knew it. And, once I saw her, yeah. But then when he overheard her talking in like the marketplace with her other ISI guys, I was like, oh no, oh, she's gonna burn him. Oh, like I bought it. I totally bought it. Hook, line, and sinker.
I mean, I will tell you, I think it's less telegraphed than the other. I just think what's weird is like we're trying to believe that she and him have this really strong relationship, and then like I just don't think he would believe her. Like he overheard her, but like she would have told him. That's the like it's again like for the movie wanting to build their relationship to be as strong as possible, to get to the point where as two characters we believe that two agents from the wrong side of the tracks, like one, you know what I mean? Like we need to believe as audience members that they are going to run away together. And if we have a doubt that she's going to turn on him after it's like,
but you know what those twists did to me towards the end of the movie? When he jumps on that plane, I thought she was going to like boot him in the face.
Really?
Like I thought there was going to be another twist.
Wow.
So, they had me all disoriented, Chris.
Eck Tha Tiger, directed by M. Night Shyamalan. Every opportunity to fake out the audience and subvert their expectations. We're taking it, guys.
Yeah. I thought she was going to be like, ha, I'm actually ISI still. Booyah.
Later, dude. I think for me, when we talk about the post twist where it's they meet up once again and he convinces her to run away with him and they run off together and then they're in Havana, Cuba, and they're being tracked and ISI and Ra are looking for them. It feels like the Bourne Identity.
Yeah, it really does.
Isn't that what I haven't seen the Bourne Identity in a very long, but is that not what the Bourne Identity is? Correct me if I'm
wrong. Yeah, pretty much is. Yeah. This movie does follow that vibe quite a bit.
Yeah, it's that trope. It's that story. It's the agent who is burned that they're trying to track down to make sure. Because again, they even say it in the movie multiple times. Girish Karnad Shenoy, the chief of Raw, who I'm glad they ended up having someone else in Pathan because he's kind of really unlikable later in the movie. Because like you're trying to believe that him and
it's ruthless,
right? And you're trying to believe him and Tiger have a relationship, but like he's just so like he's so willing and easily ready to cut him loose. Like it's just like wow, yeah, like what the fuck, man?
He's like, oh, he turned. Let's kill him.
You were in this guy's house eating his doll for fuck's sake, and all of a sudden you're like, fucking gotta go. This guy's gotta go. Like, Jesus, man. Like Tiger said he wanted to just, when he was done, he was gonna go live a normal life, and you're like, yeah, well, fuck that.
Yeah, no, you're gonna die. That's what you're gonna do. You're gonna have a normal death.
Right. But like it's weird because all of that stuff with him and her in Havana running away and Bourne Identity stuff, like it's just to what end?
Yeah.
We know by this point they're not gonna get taken back in. Like we know that that's not gonna happen. So we're at this point less invested in what's happening in the movie and more invested in the set piece, which I think are pretty good. Like that is kind of the thing that I do appreciate about the second half of the movie is while the plot is maybe not breaking any new ground in any way, at least the action set pieces are pretty.
Yeah, I was actually in both this Empathan and even in like Bahubali, I'm pretty impressed with the action scenes and fight scenes, and like I really enjoy them. And we've said it before, I always see something that's a little different, a different approach to how a fight scene would play out. There's always something unexpected.
I really like the scene when they're on the rooftop in Havana and they're running around and fighting the ISI and Rai, and the like random homage later on in the movie to National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, where they're riding down the hill on the door of the car for a very long time.
After they rip it off the car.
They're riding that door for a comically long time. Well, like I haven't seen that in another movie. And again, I watch a fair amount of movies, so it's not like I don't watch action movies. You and I both watch a fair amount of 80s and 90s action movies up until this point in our life. So we've seen a lot of it, and it's fun to see things we've never seen. That is a welcome aspect of Indian cinema that I think more people than just us would appreciate. Because again, I feel like, I talk about it on other episodes of other podcasts I'm on. We, in a lot of ways, have stagnated on action movies, and superhero movies are now our action.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a lot of the same, like in a way that is really surprising. We've all kind of turned a blind eye to.
Yeah. And it kind of got ingratiated, like here's a Marvel movie. And it's like, oh, cool, Marvel. Like, I love these when I was younger. Like, I read all those comics. Here's another installment of a Marvel movie, and here's another character. And now it's just everything is in the MCU.
Well, and it doesn't make it any better that you have to have seen everything now to get anything out of what you're watching. And it's like drug addicts, right? It's like drug addicts. I refuse to continue on the sunk cost train because so the sunk cost fallacy is that, oh, I've already sunk $1,000 into it. What's another $100? It's another $100 you're going to lose. So don't do it if you don't want to. And that's why I've kind of not given up on Marvel movies, but like I'm not getting what I used to get out of them. And what I used to get out of them was being entertained and seeing some interesting action and some, kind of novel performances. And they don't do it for me. This kind of stuff does. Indian cinema does. It has interesting action shot in an interesting way. If we're talking action, that feels novel and fresh. And it feels like someone in the room with something to say, not just saying the same thing over and over, but in a different key. Like actually singing a different song, like actually singing a song in a way that substantially changes it and makes people excited to see more.
Yeah. And this whole Spyverse thing is cool because it's the formula of bringing together all the big name people into one movie, to have an end movie climax. Like, I think that's what's happening. And, it's probably going to happen with Brahmastra. But I like there's something about how these are done, or the ones I've seen thus far, that just seem more exciting. Just because, like, SRK is huge, Salman Khan's huge, and Salman Khan and the way they are together, like, I fully think that them two will be together, SRK and Deepika in a movie, and I think that would be awesome.
Right. And then again, even to go further than that, my hope is that they bring in, because again, at this point, it just makes sense. They need to get Amir Khan in. They need to get Amir Khan into the spy universe, because to get the three of them on screen together doing this and having a pose down Avengers style would be so fucking cool. It would be cooler than the event. I would sit there and just be like, again, in awe of the amount of coordination it would take to get that to happen. But again, it's not that much, because we're talking about 3 actors as opposed to 12 or 100 or whatever amount you can CGI into the same scene from a green screen somewhere that isn't actually together. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the other thing at this point with, Marvel, and they're following the Marvel formula. They are. I mean, so is Brahmas. It may get to the point where we're like so sick and fucking tired of these spy units because they're all the same. We're not there yet.
No.
And we may never get there. They may continue to be quality and they stop at some point, and it's not just milk, milk, milk until there's nothing left. Like that's where we are with our stuff. Like with Indian cinema, sequels weren't a thing for a long time. With American cinema, if you make a successful movie, you better make there's not a choice.
That's right. Well, I'm sure Pathan had a lot more green screening than we realized, but in this movie, I actually enjoyed, like, as I'm watching it, I was noticing all the different places they were. They were in Dublin, they were in Havana, they were in Istanbul, they were in Bangkok, they were in Delhi. They were all over the place because they were trying to travel around and not be seen or not be found. But I just thought that was cool to, like, see all those areas, and they were actually there filming it.
Which in this day and age feels like a hard sell.
Yeah, you want me to go where?
Do what? I can't just walk over there and do it?
I've got a green screen, just zoom me in and all.
And that's not to say that the technology isn't there to make the transition away from green screen to something else that could be just as interesting, like what HBO and Warner Brothers were using on Game of Thrones, where they're in a room that's surrounded by screens that are so high definition that they can shoot on that set, and it can be so convincing that you don't have to do a whole lot. I mean, that's what they did with the new Game of Thrones. That's why it looks so fucking good, because again, it's not a guy on a green screen, it's your set surrounded by the fake scene. And it's insane to think about, and it's insane to see it in process. And I know this is a complete tangent, but if you have HBO Max, they did a whole making of House of the Dragon, and they show this set, and they talk about it over and over and over again. And it sounds like a miracle of modern filmmaking, but at the same time, it should be the future of filmmaking in a lot of ways, because
queue up whatever you want.
Right, but also the whole CGI constantly thing, it's exhaust. Like, look, there are actual stunt people doing the stunts in this movie, and a lot of it's not Salman, and a lot of it's not Katrina Kaif. But you know what? That's still someone doing it. Like, even if it is Salman Khan's face, maybe not the best CGI'd onto their body, and it's sometimes very noticeable. But again, limitations of the special effects house that's doing it, limitations of the budget, what have you, that's fine, but they're still doing it. It's like wrestling, right? Like, yeah, someone may not be punching someone in the ring, but when someone picks someone else up and slams them backward, there's no faking. Here it's you've got people doing choreography, but it's real people doing it. It's not Paul Rudd in a CGI, whatever. It's just, and that is not something that can ever be replaced, no matter how good it
looks. And that's the thing with the Marvel stuff. As soon as you put a mask on, you can go full-blown CGI.
Right. And that's always the joke now on the Of Mushrooms and Men podcast, where we talk about The Last of Us. It's a show where Pedro Pascal actually has to be in the show.
Not just voice it.
Not just a stunt double or a body double, and his voice. So again, like that is a very cynical way of looking at it, but it is also because it is so heavily relied on now. And again, not complaining about it. We get to see shit that doesn't actually exist so often now that we've become desensitized to seeing Paul Rudd being 30 fucking feet tall. People in 1910 would not be able to comprehend that doesn't actually exist, and someone did it with one of them their special picture box thing. It's just we take it for granted, but it's also been so heavily used that now anybody, if you have a good enough computer, you can make something look really good. I mean, you and I talked about Skinamarink, which uses a lot of practical effects, but also CGI and special and some special effects trickery. But even then, like, that movie was made on a $15,000 budget, and they have acts. So
right,
but it's not as big of a deal anymore. But it's also so ubiquitous that it doesn't feel special, and it hasn't for a very long time.
Yeah. And I think that's what made this one feel a little more special. There's actually realness to it.
And that's the Bourne.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, that's copped directly from Bourne. I mean, that's the thing about this movie is, like you said, it's the man who knew too little, but then he actually is a secret agent.
Mm-hmm.
That's a novel concept, and that's why this movie was so successful. That is why this movie made so much money. It was the highest grossing film of 2012 when it came out. And it's the 36th highest grossing Indian film of all time, which is a large list of, way down, but like 36, a lot, given how many Indian cinema films have come out over all time. So this was a very successful movie. There is a reason why the spy universe came out of this. I will say, and I think I mentioned it at the top, they did not have a fucking clue that they were going to do a spy universe, because the way this movie ends is like very quaint.
Mm-hmm.
And they're off together in the wind.
Pretty much just off in the sunset.
Yeah, this is where this could have ended. We haven't seen the next film, Tiger Zinda Hai, and I'll be curious if that movie justifies its existence, because this movie has a pretty satisfying end. They're on the run together, and maybe one day when India and Pakistan don't need ISI and RAW anymore, Tiger and Zoya will come back to India or Pakistan, respectively. Like, that is a really nice, good, feel-good ending.
Yeah. It totally could have been like, hell yeah.
What else do you need, right? Like, but then we have Tigers in the High, then we have War, and then we have Pathan. So it's funny, like, Pathan feels so far from in a way that, again, we talk, like you mentioned, in Pathan, Salman Khan shows up playing Tiger with a scarf, showing up, whooping ass, going for it, being charismatic, being really engaging, having a lot of good banter with SRK to the point where they essentially close out the movie together. It feels like the same character, but it did not feel like this would have been the movie he should have been coming at.
Right. Yeah. And I am still appreciating the like musical numbers that jump in when they do. I think this just had like one, maybe two during the movie itself, and then one at the end. But looking at Salman Khan, like, he looks kind of beefy, and almost moves kind of stiff, at times. But then once he starts dancing, it's like, oh, wow. I mean, you said it the other day, like, look at the moves on this guy. Like, I did not expect him to be able to move the way he could.
And he's really good in those musical numbers. I think, again, him and Katrina Kaif really carry this movie together. Like, I really like SRK and Kajol, and I think that they are fantastic together. I think they are believably cute together, but I really like the the sexual tension between Katrina Kaif and Salman Khan in the first half of the movie. And then when they kind of just give into it in the second half, they're really cute together.
Yeah.
And you feel that they feel for each other.
Right.
Which, like, it sounds like, ooh, that's really easy to do. But, like, there are so many of those James Bond movies where he clearly has no fucking chemistry with the female lead. like A View to a Kill, where Roger Moore is Tanya Roberts' grandfather at that point.
Yes.
Again, not saying you can't have a, spring, December romance. Salman Khan is 57 and Katrina Kaif is 39. So they're practically 20 years apart. But he looks good for his age is putting it mild. Just like SRK looks good for his age, right? Again, putting it mild.
Yeah. Fun fact, and I don't know if you ran across this when getting ready to watch this movie or after watching this movie, but we've talked about SRK a little bit. Apparently, he was first approached for this movie, but because of a conflict with something else he was involved in, couldn't do it.
I did see that, which
how wild was that?
Very funny.
And the fact that they are now in the same universe.
And together on screen, even.
Yeah, yeah. And it, honestly, I mean, he probably would have done fine, but SRK, in 2012, 2015?
2012.
2012. SRK in 2012 didn't look like SRK 2022.
No. And he wouldn't have looked, I mean, that's the thing, like, Pathan is a movie that exists very much in a time and a place because that look is a desirable look now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, himbo, I keep joking about him looking like a full-on himbo daddy, but he is the himbo daddy of himbo daddies in Pathan. He is so good looking, it's hard to fathom. And yeah, if he had been in this movie, he would have had to play, a dope.
Yeah.
But then turns it on halfway through. Like, I much prefer him just being a complete badass motherfucker throughout. Like, I don't need this softer side of him this way. Because we do see a softer side of Pathan with him, in the village in Afghanistan, where he came from. Like, there's a softer side to that character in that movie.
Yeah.
But you see a lot deeper of a character complexity with Tiger in this. You really get a sense of who he is as a character. I'm not saying you don't with Pathan and SRK in that movie, but the character building is more important in this. That's more the focus of this movie because Pathan is action from the word go. Like, This is only action for about an hour of 2.5 hours.
And then it becomes kind of a romantic comedy for a bit.
Right. Which is the most compelling part of this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so good. And it, again, like, I'm wanting more of that, and I know that we get more of it. And I'm sure we're going to get a whole boatload of it in Tiger 3, which is coming out later this year, which, again, I'm so excited for. And there's a high percentage chance that it will release here, and we will be able to go see it.
I hope so.
I hope so, too, because I'm on board with this complete. Like, you couldn't convince me that this isn't going to be something that people stateside will finally fucking take notice of. You can't convince me that's not going to happen.
Oh, yeah. If it's showing up at movie theaters in Lincoln, Nebraska, it's going to start showing up elsewhere, and more people are going to start. And we're gonna be Indian cinema hipsters. We're gonna be like, I liked it before you did. I liked it before it was cool.
We're so far ahead of that curve already that it's. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. I think these are two very big blips. These two things being Pathan and Triple R, which are like the two big things. And like, Pathan's not even really getting mentioned as much as Triple R was. Like, Pathan is being mentioned, but it's also being mentioned in circles and places that I'm already looking and expecting it to be there. It's not being mentioned places that I wasn't expecting, which is what Triple R is getting. Triple R is getting people stumbling upon it on Netflix. My hope is when Pathan eventually makes its way to Amazon Prime Video, which it's totally going to, that it will be promoted as a thing that is worth watching, even if you're not someone who's familiar at all who SRK.
Well, and just to expand on this a little bit more, I have a coworker that I mentioned this podcast to, and mentioned that we went and saw Pathan, and I think he said he went and listened to our Pathan podcast, and then he said he started hearing on NPR people talking about Pathan, and he's like, wow. He's like, that must have been a good movie. It's like, gotta go see it, dude.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you can be ahead of the curve.
Mm-hmm.
You can. And yeah, it's like ahead of the curve normally means like you see this and then you have nothing else for a while to watch. Like there's so many things you could be watching in between now and Tiger 3 coming out. If you're really invested in this stuff specifically, or invested in, Brahmastra 2. Like, again, like there's so much stuff you could be watching in those in-between times of Indian cinema that it's not like it's some barren wasteland. Eck Tha Tiger and Pathan are good, but they're nowhere near the best Indian cinema, but they're really good. And they're good examples of good Indian cinema action.
Yeah.
I still go to DDLJ as my favorite Indian cinema movie that I have seen. And that is a fucking romantic. And it is not the kind of movie I would watch in a English language type film. And it's not a movie that I would ever contemplate as saying is one of my favorite movies, but it is one of my favorite movies, DDLJ is. And it is a Indian romantic comedy.
Wow. I'm going to have to watch that. You sold me.
It's 3 hours.
Might take me a couple days.
A 3-hour romantic comedy is not something that you would be pitching to a Western audience.
That's true. Although I might be able to sell my wife on it.
Right? You like romantic comedies? Here you go.
Yeah. What are you doing for the next 3 hours?
You're watching this is what you're doing. You're watching DDLJ.
And iced coffee and a blanket? Let's go.
And here's the funny thing. So Salman Khan and SRK were in Kuch Kuch Hota Hai together.
Oh.
He's really charming there, but it's really funny now to like think about, like you said, where they ended up, where we are now in 2023, where they're both, again, essentially leads of their own, again, if we're using Marvel equivalent, Marvel franchise.
Yeah.
This is as big as a Marvel franchise. And
they didn't know it in 2012. They know it after Pathan.
Yeah. Well, I think they knew it pretty quickly after this movie. I just don't think they knew the connected.
Right.
They knew they were going to do something more with Eck Tha Tiger, but like I think it was the next. It feels like it was the next movie where they knew they were going to, because like it just like there's so nothing that would lead me to believe they knew where they were going with this. More of that lands on the ending. The ending of this movie is so like definitive that it doesn't feel like they were like, yes, and there will be more. Like it feels like this was the end, and that's the end of it. And like. Now we have Pathan, like you said. So, yeah, we have seen that they are now together. This is a whole thing. We're going to get more. There's going to be more directions that they go and more people that they bring in, and fucking Prabhas maybe, or, Ranbir Kapoor, or again, like, who knows? It could go anywhere.
Which leaves me excited.
Same.
We don't know what it's going to do, but I know it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. And now with the success of these kinds of movies, we're seeing movies that feature other mainstream Indian actor doing a big action movie like Rajnikant, who's literally like almost 80 years old, doing he's a badass, gonna go kick some ass. Even Salman Khan has a movie coming out this year where he's got long hair and he's doing the John Wick thing. Like it's a popular storytelling trope now to do this, and I'm all here for it as long as we're talking Indian cinema, maybe not in Western cinema, because like I feel like we're finally at the tail end of it. Like John Wick is the lone gunman, the final stand, like the last man standing, because everything else kind of was just a clone of John Wick. But like I'm excited to see where that is taken in Indians, because that's clearly the direction they're going. Even with that SRK movie, Jawan, that's coming up, like that looks just like a John Wick style movie, but with SRK. Right.
Well, and like you said, with Western cinema, we've kind of had our heyday with that stuff, and it'll probably continue, but like the ramp up, it's no longer ramping up. It's more...
Bob Odenkirk isn't getting his own movie. Charlize Theron is not getting, I don't think, a sequel to Atomic Blonde.
Oh.
Is that a sad point for you?
Yeah.
I was really bored by Atomic Blonde. Like,
well, I mean, again, I'm an easily entertained person.
I mean, hey, there needs to be a mix of people. Not everybody can be Mr. Critical.
Well, and what I just liked about it is that it was a different type of, I guess, action character.
A different kind of John Wick.
Yeah.
I mean, again, like
a female one. I mean,
right? Yeah, but then Jennifer Garner did it too, right? Didn't she, with peppermint or whatever the hell that?
Yeah.
Like
whatever.
I mean, again, like I don't know. So many of those movies just kind of came out, and
and now Indian cinema's having its run at it.
I'm all here for it.
Yeah.
Because John Wick is really it now. Like, John Wick is the only one left. Like, John Wick 4 is coming out. But there's, like I said, no Atomic Blonde 2, no Peppermint 2, no whatever the Bob Odenkirk movie was called. Like, there's no sequels to those movies coming. But John Wick will probably continue to get movies until they're good and done and Keanu is finally finished. Like, John Wick is Keanu's Mission Impossible.
Yeah. And people just want him in the MCU anyway, so.
Right. And that's the thing. I don't want any Indian actors in the MCU. You know why? Because that's beneath. And you talked about that with SRK. Like, you know, he doesn't want.
Yeah. He wants to prop up Indian cinema and not prop up another.
Right. Well, that's the thing. It would, for Western cinema, he would be propping it up. In Indian cinema, he is one of the people that's holding it, you know, proudly on his shoulders, to the point of at the end of Pathan, where him and Salman Khan are. And we didn't talk about this last time because, again, like, you know, this was them saying, like, we are still here. We're still the badasses of Indian cinema. We're still the ones paving the way, keeping the success, keeping the green rolling in.
Yep. Who's going to come in and do it when we're not here anymore? Yeah.
No young kids. It's going to be us. We're going to be the ones doing it. And like, yes, and you should not go work in the ends. Maybe some of the actors from Triple R, younger Indian actors going and doing that. But do you want to be the prince in another kingdom, or do you want to be the king of your own fucking castle? Because that's what you're asking.
Right.
Someone like SRK or Salman Khan or Amir Khan to do. Go to the United States and be a second-class citizen among those actors because you can't speak English as well as a native English speaker. Because that's ultimately, SRK said it himself, like, that's what it's going to boil down to.
Yeah, he's going to end up just playing the guy in the shawarma place, you know?
Right. Like, I mean, look at what happened to Jet Li, for sake. Like, Jet Li got the short end of the stick because they couldn't give him funny things to say, like the N-word, like Jackie Chan did in Russia. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Jet Li just wasn't able to do the same thing Jackie Chan was. And so Jet Li went back to China and Hong Kong and made movies, and he has a fantastic career not working in Western cinema. And if I am an actor whose native language is not English, and I am a big-time actor in the cinema of my country to the point of being known as one of the three Khans, I'm probably not going to go work in the cinema where the ability to speak English fluently is the only thing separating me from being me and somebody. Like,
well, there's huge populations of people that watch movies in places other than the United States.
India is in between 3 and 4 times the size of the United States. Like, they're good. They're good. And you know what? Nobody should go and bother them about the MCU because that is beneath them. It really feels like.
What about a Brahmastra MCU crossover?
That's fine. That's fine. But again, like, just to cast SRK in something and then have him be in that for 5 movies and take up his time away from other things like Khan, like Jawan, like other movies that he's going to be in that are probably going to be much more interesting than most of the MCU movies we get, that would be a shame.
That would be a shame. Yeah.
And that's in that interview, that's exactly what he talks. Just like, I don't want to do that because that's what happens. You get roped into it and then it's like a whole thing.
Signing contracts.
Look at what happened to Chris Evans. Look at what happened to Robert Downey Jr. They got in, they made their money, and they got out. Like, and you know what?
Kill me off.
Right. Like, I don't want to be in this anymore. And you know what? In a lot of ways, like, I know people might give me flack for this, but like, good. Put it in your rearview mirror. Because I don't know what future do you have in the MCU, really? Like, it's just a money factor.
Yeah.
It's like the WWE. Like, what future do there is a ceiling in the MC. Even if you're making Robert Downey Jr. money, which nobody can anymore, because he made that because he literally is one of 3 reasons the MCU exists the way it does.
Yeah.
You're not going to ever be the man in the MCU. There is only one person who's the man in the MCU. There is no one who's the man in the MCU right now. That was Robert Downey Jr. That's why the MCU feels so rudderless, is because you don't have those big personalities the way you used to. And that's why this feels so fun and novel and fresh, is because these are the big personalities here doing that in Indians.
It's capturing that magic that MCU originally had. Here we are with it, with the Spyverse.
And you know what? I hope it doesn't overstay its welcome, because I would contend, and I'm sure you would agree, if the MCU had ended at Endgame, baby, I would have been.
Yeah.
What a fucking cap to that whole thing. Just put a bow on it, and then you want to restart, you want to go somewhere else, don't come back to this universe ever again. It's done. It'll continue on in perpetuitum doing whatever, but we don't need to check back in, because their story of the major threat that they had to deal with is over. just kidding. Let's gild the lily, baby, and let's fucking ruin it. Loki actually got away, and he's gonna ruin everything. And Kang, and blah, and Galactus, and blah. And it's like, so fucking Thanos was nothing then? Like,
let's squeeze more juice out of this orange.
It would be almost like Disney had an entire backlog of movies from 20th Century Fox that they could go and do things with and re-release or farm out to boutique labels, but they would not give a singular shit about doing that because it's not Marvel and it doesn't print money like it's going out of style. That's a shame because, again, like we said, this is so much more exciting that it actually bums me out more people aren't excited about things like Eck Tha Tiger 3 or Pathan 2 or whatever the movie is where hopefully the third leg of this tripod gets introduced. And again, we haven't seen War yet, so maybe it's Tiger Shroff and we just haven't seen it, but it feels like they need the one more big name, which again, in my opinion, would have to be Amir Khan. So
that would be cool.
That's where I want this to be. That's probably where Aditya Chopra and, Yash Raj Films want that to go, is to be the biggest thing, bigger than Brahmastra. And you know what? It has the opportunity to be. And the fact that they have two of these that are actually both compelling, that is something that American audiences should be jealous of, because we have nothing other than MCU. Star Wars blow. And Star Wars is not connected in the way that this. Star Wars is all just one thing. Like, it's just all one thing.
What about the DCEU?
What? What about it? What would you like for me to say that hasn't already been said? It's gone. It's over. Isn't it?
Pretty much.
I mean, isn't Shazam the only movie that exists now?
I think so. I mean, aren't they still like hinting at another Flash movie, but it won't be Ezra Miller?
Cool.
Probably. I hope not.
Like, that's the thing. Like, even the false starts that we've seen, like the Dark Universe, the Universal Monsters thing that never happened. Universal called their shot. Like, we never, like, nothing came of that. Like, I was so excited for that because for me, as someone who's a huge fan of horror, like I know you are, like, we don't, what horror, we have the Conjuring universe, but like, it's even there, they like barely can connect anything because the movies that they do connect, the movies that come out of the connections aren't great. So
yeah,
they have two solid connected universes already, which is something that Western audiences, if that's a thing you're into, which a lot of people it is, you should be interested in and taking note of and involving yourself in and checking out, because what a surprise, this movie's on Prime Video.
Accessible. Borrow your friend's password. Check it out.
Yeah, because Netflix is changing the passwords, baby. Amazon Prime is. So, Dustin, final thoughts on Eck Tha Tiger?
I mean, just to echo kind of what we've been saying, it's got a lot that you're going to like. And even if like you're not a rom-com fan, you're going to have the action. You're going to have kind of the whole espionage aspect of it that's in there, because even while he's in that romantic comedy aspect, he's still a spy trying to get information on this professor. So anyway, I think it's fun. It's got action. It's got stuff that you and the significant other can watch. You know, if you're into two different things, it's going to have both things, and it's a good way to spend a couple hours.
I totally agree. Again, I didn't know what we were going to get ourselves into after Pathan, because we watched the trailer for this movie. Same night we watched the trailer for Pathan, and we were like, what is this movie? And then what is that?
Yeah, it was a great way to like see how this universe started.
Right. And I enjoyed this movie a lot. Again, I have kind of my issues with it just kind of feeling very samey with the second half, because again, the Bourne movies ended up being such big influencers on so many other pieces of media that we would end up seeing here, like Batman, like James Bond, and everything became very boring and not fun and dour and serious and gritty. And it's like, oh fuck, we can't have fun anymore with movies, right? Because that's a whole, like, this movie kind of leans on that a little bit, and that doesn't resonate with me action wise the way other things do. But it still had a sense of fun to it, and it didn't completely drop the kind of slapsticky action stuff that we're so kind of used to with something like Jackie Chan. But it still had that kind of comedic action, which I appreciated. But ultimately, it's about Salman Khan and Katrina Kaif, and they're both fantastic. And this movie benefits from how good they are together. And someone saying, all right, we've got the two of them. What can we do with them that we haven't done before? Let's make them secret agent. And you know what? It works. This movie really works. This movie's a lot of fun.
Super Enjoyable.
It's just a good movie that by the end of it, you're like, all I could leave it here and not watch anymore, or I'm super invested and want to see whatever comes. And that is something that is so rare, where it's just a movie that stands on its own and there doesn't need to be anything else. I don't need to see 8 other things to appreciate this movie. And I don't need to watch 5 more things afterwards to have this recontextualized in a way that makes sense. And now I understand it. It's like, this movie stands alone, but it does stand as the beginning of a bigger narrative that is now very successful in the scope of Indian. Yeah. So I think the next time you and I do one of these, I don't know what we're going to do. I guess we're going to do Tiger Zinda High.
Yeah.
We'll watch the Tiger movie that seems more just like an action movie. Seems more like kind of, I'm a little concerned that it's going to be a lot of what the second half of this movie was and not a lot of fun. I hope that's not the case.
Just running around and fighting.
It could be that. There's a distinct possibility because the trailer looked very action-oriented and action-focused.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Only one way to find out.
Right? You're going to have to listen to the next episode. Until then, you can find Dustin and I over at weirdingwaymedia.com, where him and I talk about Indian cinema quite a bit. And, we talk about culture cast stuff, non-Indian cinema movies. Sometimes we talk about Jeff Daniels killing spiders. It's the first time we ever did, and it will forever be lodged in my brain. So until then, you can find this show at BollywoodCinemaClub.com on all social media, but just like, rate, review wherever you get the show. That helps us find an audience. And tell your friends, go watch Indian cinema, because if you're not watching it, why are you listening to the show?